What's going on, guys? It's Fishy Chess here, and we are long overdue for another Fishy Chess lesson. So, in today's lesson, it's going to seem kind of random, but I had this come up in a couple of online games I played recently, and so I figured let's make a video about it. And today's lesson is going to be on the Greek gift sacrifice. Also sometimes called Greco's gift, depending on who you ask. Named after the famous Italian chess player Greco. Because apparently he had this come up a lot in his games, although he had a reputation for making up a bunch of games. A lot of his games weren't real, so who knows if that actually happened or if he just made it up. But the Greek gift, Greco's gift, whatever you want to call it, it's all centered around this h7 pawn. This is usually a sacrifice done by white. Black can technically do it, but I've never seen it. I've only seen it from white. And it's when you have this setup with a bishop eyeing h7 and your knight on f3. And let's say in this position that I made up, black decides to castle. The Greek gift sacrifice is bishop takes h7 check. And if black wants, black can not accept the sacrifice, but most of the times the best move for black is to accept. And your next move is going to be knight g5 check. And the idea here is that if black, let's say black goes to h8 for some reason, you can just play queen h5 check and queen h7 checkmate. Now black will probably not do that. If black decides to go here, you can again play queen h5, threatening checkmate. The only thing black can do to stop checkmate is to play rook e8, but that undefends f7. So now you can take that with check, king has to move, queen can come back, and black's in a terrible position. White is completely winning. You can move your knight back and bring your bishop in. You can bring this knight over. You have so many options. Black's king has no defenses, completely shattered, no pawns. And white is down a piece, but the attack is so strong that the computer says white is completely winning here. Now, black does not have to go back after this and you take and play knight g5. Usually the best move for black is to go to g6 or h6 sometimes. And now white has a couple of options. White can bring in the queen, threaten to move the knight with check. Perhaps knight takes e6 to win the queen, or some other move. The world is your oyster here. Another move to consider is h4, defending the knight and preparing to move the queen somewhere else. This is especially helpful if you don't have your bishop here defending the knight. If your bishop's there, then it's not bad, but you can also threaten h5 check, which would force the king to move. And again, black usually doesn't have much developed here. His king is wide out in the open. You've got your queen coming, you've got your bishop, you've got your rook can come into the game here. You have so many options, and with perfect play, usually black can defend, but it's really tough, especially for more inexperienced players, to defend these positions well, especially when you've got so many pieces coming and so much action on the board. It's really hard to play the best move. So I had a couple of games. I usually don't see the Greek gift very often, but I had a couple of games recently that the opportunity arose. So decided to show those here. So this first game, I played an exchange Caro-Kann. this Panov attack, which the opening doesn't matter too much, but the position that arises is pretty similar to the one I just showed. I traded the bishops here, played bishop d3. Notice I've got that same motif happening here. And one thing that I forgot to mention is that when you're playing with white and you want to do a Greek gift, there's a couple things that have to be set up right. So for starters, this knight is blocking the queen from protecting the square. So it doesn't matter too much when you have the bishop, but if you don't have the bishop, then putting your knight there puts it right in the line of fire of the queen. And also, say black decides to put the knight here instead, you can no longer play this, because if you do, black can just take with the knight, and now you have no check, you have no pieces coming in. It's just a straight up blunder of a piece, and you have nothing to show for it. So those are two things that need to happen for the Greek gift to work. And another thing is that it's very helpful when this bishop is blocked by this pawn, because like I said, a lot of times your queen is going to come to g4, and if that bishop has access to g4, then it's not going to be as easy to poison attack on the king. So anyway, back to this game. I set up the Greek gift. I castled first just to make sure my king was safe. He played knight c6, and this is where I decided to play h4 first, because like I said, my bishop got traded early and the queen now defends. So I played h4 to make sure that it defended my knight when it came to that square. And then this is when I played it. And interestingly enough, it is actually a blunder in this position to play the Greek gift. But you'll see that, like I said, it's very difficult for black to defend, even when it's a straight up piece blunder. So black takes, I of course bring in my knight, and I play queen g4, which threatens this knight e6 check, which would win the queen. And the best move for black is actually to put the king on h6, which looks very strange, but that's the best move. I don't know. I feel like you've got the other knight coming in. You can put some pawns forward, and black is still better here, but his king's very weak, and it's easy to just go out on an attack. But instead, he played f5, or sorry. Yeah, he played f5. And of course, he's attacking my queen. So if I move my knight, he can just take my queen. So I throw in this h5 check, and the computer says this is equal, but only if he plays king f6, which is tough because that runs into a fork. My queen can then come in. It looks pretty scary, but that is the best move. Instead, he played king h6, which is now completely winning for white. I played knight f7 check. He has to play king h7, but instead he took, and this is now checkmate. So even back here when I played knight g5, this is winning for black, but because the position is so complicated and his defenses are pretty slim around his king, black just succumbed to the pressure and just couldn't find the best moves. And funny enough, the best move in this position here is actually to play king back to g8. And that's because if I bring in my queen looking for checkmate, instead of playing rook e8, he can now play knight back to f6. And this attacks my queen and defends checkmate, and white has nothing here. But this was a pretty fast game. I didn't see that. He obviously didn't see that, because he instead played king g6, and instead of playing king to h6, which would be a pretty weird move to play here. He played f5, and the rest is history. So that was one game, and then I had another game here with another Greek gift. Funny enough, it was the same opening, a Caro-Kann exchange Panov attack. Almost exactly the same setup here. Instead, so I brought out my bishop, and he played bishop d7, and this is when I went for it. And it is not a blunder in this position. Chess.com called it a brilliant move, despite the fact that it's basically equal. So that's kind of weird. But black takes. I play knight g5, knight g5 check. And instead of going back, it is better for him to come forward because his knight can no longer come to f6. So he comes forward. I again play queen to g4, and so f5 is better here because I don't have my pawn on h4, but in this position he played e5, which attacks my queen, and the idea was, so my idea was I want to move my knight and give a check with my queen, but if I do so, let's say I play like here, then he can just take my queen, no problem. However, there is one move here where I can move my knight and still deliver check without being in danger, and that of course is knight to e6 check. His bishop is now blocked, and this is forced checkmate in one or two moves depending on where he goes. He decided to go to h6, and of course, I believe almost the same. It was g6 in the last game, and now it's g7 on this game. And this is now checkmate. And yeah, that's just the power of the Greek gift. This game ended in 15 moves, and not that move. This move. This was move 11, and in just 4 more moves, he was checkmated. So that's the power of the Greek gift. Even when it doesn't work according to the computer, you can still really force black into a tough position, and defending in chess is way harder than attacking. So yeah, that's the Greek gift, or Greco's gift, whatever you want to call it. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.